Aloha and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's Tuesday. It's time for Teen Up with Iggy, that's me, and Dave. How are you, Dave?
I'm great. We had a wonderful first performance at the Waikiki Shell last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you weren't there, it's because you weren't a seasoned subscriber. We haven't yet sold individual tickets, so maybe this is your week.
That's right. And Maestro Rei Hotoda, always good to have you here.
It's wonderful to be here. I'm thrilled to be in Hawaii and share some great music with our audiences.
So today is one of my favorite shows because we have the future in front of us. And I remember her when she was, in 8th grade to the Big Island doing a summer camp. We have a very special cellist with us tonight, Mira Hu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me here.
You have grown so well as a cellist, as a person. It's just hard to believe that it was just yesterday that, it feels like it was just yesterday when you were 5 years younger and still not even in high school yet. So tell us, one very interesting and funny piece of trivia is that you have performed with the conductor that Rei here knows very well. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I believe it was last year. I performed with the Kamuela Philharmonic, and apparently it's your husband.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you got to perform with my husband, and I get to conduct with you and the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra this week with the Schumann Cello Concerto. So I'm really, really excited to work with you.
Me too. Thank you so much.
It's like we planned this.
Yes,
Yeah.
Rei, let me ask you.
Okay.
Is there a soloist who has performed with both you and your husband, Brian, or is Mira the first one?
Oh my gosh, Mira's the first.
Really?
She's the first. Yes, yes.
I'm very honored to be the first.
Well, you see, there's a great future for her already.
And Dave, this will be actually the first time you get to hear the wonderful talent in Hawaii.
Yes, last week was clearly the first time I heard the full orchestra, and this will be the first time that we will have one of our Nā hōkū ōpio Young Stars winners on the program. This is something that the symphony ran to kind of revive the youth talent pool, as it used to be called. It's been about a decade since that occurred, and this opportunity came to us with a wonderful sponsorship by our friends at the Hawaii Youth Symphony. So thank you to the board and the team and all the musicians and the teachers over at the Youth Symphony for making this possible for the symphony. I have to ask, are you more nervous to be on this wonderful televised show with Iggy or to be performing on the stage with the orchestra this Friday?
I think I'm more nervous right now.
Every week, yes, I feel it.
Yeah.
Dave, the credit should go to you for resurrecting the Nā hōkū ōpio, or formerly known as the Youth Talent Pool.
I have to say it's our associates, the associates of the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra. This is something that I think since my first associates meeting, they said we need to revive this program. We need to revive this opportunity. So the credit goes to our associates and the judges, all of whom are still anonymous. We're protecting their identity. To the
protection program.
Yes, absolutely. And to our conductor, Rei, for agreeing to have this opportunity for our young musicians on the stage at the Waikiki Shell.
So, Mira, under normal circumstances, you would have performed your concerto as a senior in your high school at Punahou with the school's orchestra.
Yeah.
So it's, I guess, a small consolation prize to not perform with the Pune Orchestra, but the Hawaii Symphony.
Yeah, it is. I was kind of bummed out that, I didn't get the chance to perform with my school orchestra. I was looking up for that. I think freshman year, I had this goal, I'm going to practice really hard so I could play with my school. But I'm kind of glad this came around. Yeah.
Very good. I understand your teacher was also a recipient of the Youth Talent Pool when in
Yes,
years past.
Nancy Masaki was also a winner of the Youth Talent Pool, so you follow in some very prestigious footsteps, I suppose.
Yeah.
So can I ask this question, because I feel like it's a shorter time period? The question I always get to ask first on the show is, take us back to the beginning.
The beginning.
The beginning, wherever you would like the beginning to be. Life as a cellist, high school, breakfast this morning.
Okay. Maybe I'll start with how I began music. I would first have to thank my grandmother. She was a piano teacher, so she really introduced me to the music world. And I began piano at around 4. And, I moved from Japan to Hawaii. And when I moved here, I thought, I wanted to play a new instrument. And, I saw someone playing the cello and I fell in love with it. And I was able to convince my mom to let me play. And I didn't know about this. My mom actually informed me a couple of days ago that she thought that cello was a bass. And she wanted me to go to New York and play in some jazz bar. And that was her dream. So I'm kind of glad she thought of that. Then it would have been harder to convince her. Yeah.
And how old were you?
I started cello around 7.
7. And was Miss Masaki your first teacher?
I had Janice Trubit first. Yeah.
Cellos can play in jazz bars as well, so there still might be a future for you in that. So, yeah, absolutely. Can I ask about carrying the cello around? Do you when you go through the airport? Is everybody well, what's that? Do you wish you play the flute?
I do all the time. Yeah.
Do you have a witty response for them?
They always tell me do you have to check that in? That won't fit in. I said, I have a ticket for it, and then they laugh. They're like, why do you have a ticket for ukulele? And I'm like, oh, this is a cello. But it's kind of awkward, but.
Yeah.
It is very awkward. Rei, I hear that Arturo Benedetti Michelangelo would travel with his piano in Europe. Do you sometimes, as an accomplished pianist yourself, do you sometimes wish that you could have your own piano with you all the time?
No, not really. That would be much harder to travel than with a cello. But I think, first of all, an instrument is, you're part of you, right? Your cello is a part of you. And pianos are all different, every single one. So yes, I love my piano at home. It's my first baby, but I have a Steinway B at home, but no, I would rather not have to travel with it.
Now, so your husband told you about Mira. So what did Brian, your husband, tell you about Mira?
Okay, so he said that you were extremely easy to work with, very prepared, and such a joy to perform with. So I'm really looking forward to this concert this week. And the Schumann Cello Concerto is really so beautiful and passionate, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your interpretation of this piece this week.
And Mira, I did hear you talk about it. You actually know a lot of things, much more than I do. Tell us about the piece that you're going to perform, the Schumann Cello Concerto.
Well, from what I remember, I don't know if everything is correct. I'm just going to put that out.
To put a disclaimer.
Put a disclaimer. What I remember is Schumann had this short span of a very motivated time. I think he wrote the piece in about 2 weeks. And this is when he just moved to Dusseldorf, and he he was appointed as a conductor and all of that. And yeah, that's pretty much all I remember.
Now, for violin, so Schumann did write a couple sonatas and the violin concerto, but for us, Schumann's music is very beautiful, but it doesn't fit the violin very well. So that is the reason why his violin concerto is hardly played. one of his sonatas is played often, but the other one is not. Can you tell us from a technical standpoint, like for instance, on the violin, we feel more comfortable in first, third, and fifth position, but a lot of Schumann is like second and fourth position. So, Dave's making a face because on the viola, you don't go past third position.
You have two positions, first and emergency.
Oh.
But so the Schumann cello concerto, does it fit in some idiomatically speaking, does it fit the playing nicely?
I have to be honest, not really. It's very difficult technically.
Okay.
I would be really happy if it's all in first position. I'll feel more secure. But it goes all over the place on the cello, and even like hours of practicing like the same passage, sometimes I still don't feel comfortable. It's really hard for me.
Well, and also Schumann was a pianist, right? And he was the one who would tie up his third and fourth finger where he actually had to cut a tendon so that he could play his trills faster. So he was a manic, very
crazy, right?
Yeah, yes, he was. And so I find that even this cello concerto, there are passages where it's very pianistic. They're just arpeggios going up and down, but on the cello is just incredibly difficult. And the other thing about this cello concerto is that it sounds easy, right? But it's really not.
Yeah.
So she's going to be working very hard this week to produce this gorgeous, gorgeous performance. But, just know in the background that there's a struggle to it. But that's part of Schumann, right? It's the struggle and the angst.
And Mira, you were saying as a freshman, you were already thinking about your concerto. Did you think of this Schumann concerto as a freshman, or did it come later?
It came around last year. Right before, when I was getting ready for my college auditions. This was one of my pieces that I played for them, so around that time.
So in terms of timing, how long do you prepare a piece before you perform it in recitals or perform it for auditions for college entrances and so forth like that? How long did you stay on it?
Usually for my first performance, it's in the beginning of the first couple of months. Maybe like third or fourth, I would have like a mini recital just to, really put me out there and be more comfortable. And then I would, because of all the concerts and auditions I would have, I would end up sticking with it for another couple months. Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about Janice Trubit and Nancy Misaki, what they brought to you, and if they were kind of gentle with you, or did they have to kind of poke you a little bit to practice, or?
With Janice Trubit, she really did push me forward. I think it was because it was in my beginning stages. I really needed someone to really push me forward and motivate. And then when I moved with Nancy Misaki, she's very nice. I rarely see her being mad at me or even strict. And, with her, I don't know, she still pushes me a lot, of course, and motivates me, but she really, shaped how I play today.
And Dave, you heard the performance that Mira submitted?
I did. All of the applications came through my desk. I just got to listen to them for fun. I wasn't a judge, but I was just so impressed with your playing and the musicality you brought to the entire piece. I having done auditions, I will tell you that I usually knew the 3 minutes of the piece that started it, and then the rest, I was like, I hope they don't ask for that. But the musical conviction and the story that you told throughout the entire piece was wonderful, and I can't wait to hear you bring the orchestra along on that journey throughout the rest of the week here. So I'm really thrilled.
Thank you.
Rei, it's a romantic Schumann and a very romantic and tormented as well Tchaikovsky. Can you tell us about the Symphony No. 4 that we'll get to perform and listen to?
Yes. So Fate was Tchaikovsky's muse throughout this piece. And you hear that right away in the opening fanfare by the horns. And what's amazing about this piece is it's one of the pieces, the Fourth Symphony is really what catapulted him into the symphonic repertoire. You know, this is the piece that I think really showcases him as a composer at his height.
Right, because we think of 4, 5, 6, not so much 1, 2, 3, right?
Right, exactly. And what's great about this combination of Schumann and Tchaikovsky is that both were incredibly driven composers in that Tchaikovsky was so self-critical. He doubted himself all the time. Schumann, on the other hand, was extremely manic and insane in his own unique way. And so there's this whole angst and drama that's coming out. And so much of this past year with the pandemic, as all of us has been sequestered, is like this need to release, you know, and get out our emotions. And I think this program really does that excellent for the orchestra and for us to hear that.
Can I just get technical for a second? I was actually practicing today.
Okay.
And the Tchaikovsky,
Yes.
and one of the markings says Allegro con anima.
Yes.
Now, often, and I want to ask you, often when we see con anima, we think with animation, but actually, you know, the literal meaning is with soul.
Right.
So when you see on the score something con anima, a lot of conductors go a little faster.
Right.
Because maybe there's more soul and so, you know, it gets more tormented or whatever. What's your take?
Well, I think it really depends on the context of it. And again, the composer, and especially what's written in the score orchestrally, what's happening with the orchestra and the writing of the orchestra. And here, I think it really means to bring out the soul of the orchestra. And I feel like this piece really does that so well.
Quickly, we had Michael Foumai last week, and he presented beautifully all his works for this Foumai festival for this summer. You're going to conduct Kealai Kaiki. This is your first time doing it, correct?
Yes, yes. This is a trilogy, a triptych piece, which is exploring the roots and the story of voyagers and
Hokulea,
navigators. Yes. And I love that Hokulea is a female voyager, you know?
Right.
And I think that's so poignant right now that, that we're performing a Hawaiian national treasure. You know, I think he is such an incredible composer. Not only is he has the ability to write for the orchestra so brilliantly, but his music is cinematic. You know, it's not just programmatic. It's like you can feel the ocean, you know, as the orchestra's playing, you could feel the torment of the volcanoes, or, you know, it's just such a ride.
It is.
And I just think that, you know, for the audiences to hear their own composer of their own, you know, state of Hawaii is just, it's going to be an incredible journey.
Mira, you've been involved with the Hawaii Youth Symphony for quite a number of years. Do you remember actually reading and performing some of Michael Thomas Foumai's music?
Yeah, I think also the Punahou Symphony has done it as well. And it's really fun to work with him. You know, it's quite different from the repertoire we're usually working with. So it's such a nice change, yeah.
Yes.
I have to add that the Michael Thomas Foumai Festival that's happening 7 of our 8 performances at the Sheraton Starlight Series is thanks to Susan Kosasa, who is sponsoring that entire festival of work with Michael Thomas Foumai. So we're very grateful for that support.
Very good. Mira, we talked about, kind of the manic Schumann, the tormented Tchaikovsky, and you're going into music. Maybe I should have presented it differently, but it says something that you are a winner of this Nā hōkū ōpio, and not surprisingly, you are a dedicated musician going into music in college. When, over the last few years, did you decide that you were going to go majoring in music?
I think it would have to be my sophomore year when I attended a summer festival, I believe in Indiana. And I just realized that, many people actually warned me before going. They said it's going to be very rigorous, and they were like, do you think you could handle it? But I enjoyed every single moment, and I just wanted that to be like part of my daily life. And that's when I knew I wanted to do music.
And go ahead, Dave.
Rei, when did that come for you?
Oh, gosh. I started playing the piano when I was 3 years old. And my mother was a music teacher, so she taught me. So I don't even remember reading music. Like, I don't consciously remember how I learned how to read music. And so music has been a part of me, like a limb, like my arm, my legs. So I can't even imagine life without music. And I think early on, I think it was in 6th grade, I wanted to be a professional ice skater. I thought, okay, I'm going to be the next Christy Yamaguchi or something, And so my mother said, who are you? You're going to have to decide, music or ice skating? And I said, ice skating, of course, because I had music all of my life. And so my mother said, nope, you're going to be a musician. So I continued, as a pianist for many, many years. But I think it takes a lot of dedication, and I think you have it, obviously.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful.
High school. So I almost dropped out of high school, or more or less. What are some of the vivid memories from high school that you'll, remember for the rest of your life? Things that stick out, whether it's music or not.
I think it's really the community itself. Being around people with different interests really inspired me to pursue what I want to do. I've never seen so many people with like different passion, and I think that would really stick with me from high school.
Dave, any memories from high school? I do have a few memories from high school, yes. Most of them weren't around music, though. Could I jump off that question, because was the answer he was looking for, well, my quartet coach?
No, actually, unfortunately, I have not had the chance to coach Mira at her school. Maybe at a summer camp, I did hear you a couple times.
Yes.
I thought, were you going to ask about the prom? Or what is the big deal? I'm sorry, but I didn't grow up in the U.S., right? So the prom is, is not a big deal. But, to a lot of my students, the prom is a big deal. But I don't know. I don't know what the big fuss is about.
Well,
Mira,
you missed your prom, didn't you?
I did. We had, it was renamed Senior Dinner. It's very awkward.
Like a senior citizen dinner?
Yeah.
20 more of those in the future, yes.
Oh, that's too bad.
But is that something that you would have liked? What happens if you don't have a date? What happens is, I'm sorry, and let me cross the line. What happens if, I think of boy-girl, but what if you just want to be boy-boy and girl-girl? Is that, are the schools accepting of that, or is there a policy? Or, I mean, this is 2021 after all, right?
Yeah, it's totally accepting. There's a lot of people who actually bring their friends too, from whatever grade. I know people seniors bringing as young as sophomores to prom, but they're all friends. And I don't think people make too big of a deal out of who's your date, more as I think people just want to have fun.
Great. Sorry, I was just, I was just curious. And there's no one else that we've had the last 37 episodes I could have asked.
He's been dying to ask this question for 38 episodes now, so we can retire the series.
So I'm sorry, one more thing. When you work on your concerto and you have, usually you have a pianist, right? And then in your case, you've had the chance to perform with orchestra on the Big Island. Did you find differences that you didn't expect to find between like playing your piece with the piano as opposed to playing with an orchestra and the conductor? I mean, what were some of the adjustments that you had to make?
Well, first of all, I didn't know how much I had to project my sound. I was really tired after the first rehearsal. And from that moment, I knew I needed to increase my stamina because I passed out after. What else? I think also I felt really supported. I didn't feel as isolated. I think it's just because there's more people surrounding me. But those are the two biggest things I took away.
And Rei, how is the orchestral writing for this concerto?
How is the writing for it? I think it's pretty transparent in that you can really hear the soloist. I think Schumann really did a good job, as opposed to some of his other works like his symphonies. They can be a little bit heavy and dense. So I think it works very well. It's just challenging to get that the musicality of it, and it just jumps around, and we want to think about the two polar opposites that Schumann embodied, Eusebius and Florestan, the introvert and the extrovert. And so we'll have to really play with that and work on that this week, I think. But that's all about the creative process of, working together and collaborating.
So the two of you will get to meet before the first rehearsal?
I hope so.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a plan, and we're going to work on it and
have a blast.
Yes, exactly.
On that same line of thought, what advice would you have to the next generation of musicians, Mira and her classmates, about the future of classical music, symphonic or otherwise?
Well, I think, especially since the pandemic, I think things are now at a moment where we can really do so much change, not just, in the whole structure of the classical music world, but collaborations are so important right now, especially for you going into music. It's not just about playing the cello. I really think that it's important to look at so many different aspects of who you are as a musician, as a person, and really have fun with all those different things. Not just practicing, but maybe you're interested in teaching, or maybe you're interested in mentoring, or, there's so many things that young people can do now, and all of us can do. I think we've learned so much from, not being able to perform last year, that I'm just bursting with ideas. And I really encourage everyone to just go for it. It's not been done? Great. Let's do it, So that's what I suggest.
And Mira is young, so you can learn things a lot quicker than myself.
Oh, come on, Iggy.
But it's true.
You're young.
Well, anyway, Dave.
I'm so grateful to have you both as guests, Rei. It's been wonderful to have you in town with the symphony, and I'm looking forward to your next visit, as well as the performances this weekend. Come hear the performance at the Waikiki Shell if there's tickets still available. Head on over to myhso.org and see what's left. I think with Mira on the roster here, it's going to be a sellout for sure. So hurry on over there. Iggy.
Wonderful to have our future with us.
Yeah.
Mira, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting
Absolutely.
me.
Please join us next week for another episode of Tuning Up on Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. With Iggy and his supporting actor, Dave. And thanks, as always, for your support. Have a good night.